Listen, welcome to LME Streams, the show where we talk about all of the new movies that have come out this past week. As you can see here, it was interesting to see our virtual box office weekend. Like, we have gone through so many movies throughout the year with theaters being closed and nobody really knew what was coming out that was new or not. But Zach, this would have been the first virtual box office. Was it worth it?
I mean, it was an exciting Christmas weekend of movie releases. I don't know if it was as big as we're used to, given that it's always a big year for movie releases, but we got at least one really good release and one very splashy release. So lots of stuff to talk about, lots of interesting movies, some less interesting.
But
I don't know.
everything at the comfort of your own house. That's what I
Yeah.
think is super dope. But yeah, if you never join one of these Letterboxd Mondays, we pretty much just log everything that we've watched throughout this past week. We pretty much pit these streamers against each other because it's Soul versus Wonder Woman 84, but it's really Disney Plus versus HBO Max now. It's them versus Netflix versus Prime, and so far, Disney Plus usually ends up at the bottom of our list, but they've been priming for something over here with Soul. Even had a short with it, and as always, we always like to have some Q&As throughout the end. So if you guys have anything that you guys want to talk about, definitely hit us up with some comments. But let's start off with the first one, which is Pixar's Soul. I thought Wolfwalkers was gonna win, and now I'm really, really scared. That's the only way I could put it. This is Disney's new movie that comes from Pete Docter, is also co-directed by Kent Powers, who did another little movie that's gonna come out with Regina King called One Night in Miami. So it's dope to see him now do some animations as well. Jamie Foxx is the lead. This blew me away. We talked about Wolfwalkers earlier and how we wanted that one to win because it's always losing to Pixar, and we're like, yeah, no, it's their year. Then we saw Soul, and I think it's better than Inside Out. I think it's one of the best that they've had in years. It's not a perfect movie, but I absolutely adored the movie, and it is available on Disney Plus. Not for a month. It is available on Disney Plus. Zach, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think this is the best Pixar film that we've gotten in at least a decade, and it's interesting because it has these similarities to Inside Out, maybe the last great Pixar movie, but to me, this is even better, and a similar movie from the same director, Pete Docter. I like the way that Soul is a little bit more intangible, a little bit more about feeling, a little bit more about small pleasures than the rigidity of like what feelings are what categories of Inside Out. I really liked how this movie kind of meanders. There's some of the best scenes are things that don't move the plot forward a lot, like that barbershop scene. It's just a really joyful world to live in. This is a movie that I would have watched a much longer version of than the one we got.
Yeah, I recommend this wholeheartedly. I think just the artistry behind it. I will say, they went for the blobs and did the whole soul thing, and they just end up looking like Osmosis Jones. And there's even one of my favorite parts of it. I'm gonna see if I can pull it up right here in the trailer. Is an animation that they do with some of the characters. These right here. I thought it was very interesting because they're kind of scaling it back, doing a little bit more of a 2D type thing, but it felt a lot like World of Tomorrow. I had told you this too. I was like, yo, this looks like the Mac Finder guy, right? Or it looks like Don Hertzfeldt's World of Tomorrow, which I believe he came out with his third one that's available on Vimeo
Yeah.
from a series of shorts. Yet I found them to be the most interesting. You had brought up who had done the voice for Terry because they're all called Jerry's, but one of them, the accountant, is called Terry. And I didn't know who voiced this character. And then you hit me with like, yo, it's Rachel House from Moana, Hunt for the Wilder People, Thor Ragnarok. She absolutely killed it. That was my favorite character. I'd say the only issues that I really have with the movie is just tiny stuff, kind of like well, I guess there's more spoilers, so I guess we'll talk about it on Intercut. But
I think you could say that it resolves in some ways maybe more
yeah,
simply than you wanted it to.
yeah. I guess that's the best way to put it. But no, I absolutely love Soul. I think you also gave it 4 stars. So
Yeah,
we're really big fans of Soul.
absolutely. Definitely. I would say, if not the best movie out this weekend, then the best one you can watch at home.
Easily, without a doubt. And like a Pixar movie, it usually comes with a short. And this one came with a little short called Burrow. I know that this was made by a director. Let me pull up a name over here who like grew up with bunnies, and she was like, if I could ever make something It would be something that represents all of the cottontails that she grew up with. And I thought it was a really cute short. It's pretty much this bunny who's trying to get down and create its own burrow, but it keeps going into a lot of its neighbors' houses. And it's really a story about community. I don't know if you got the chance to catch this one. It would have played before Soul. And I thought it was very cute.
Yeah, it's definitely a cute one, and I don't know if it's necessarily as like profound as all of the Pixar shorts, although it has a nice message. Again, like you said, about community. I like the art style of this one particularly. I like that more hand drawn aesthetic. So I enjoy this one, and yeah, it's only 6 minutes long, available on Disney Plus. You might as well give yourself the full Pixar experience and do the short before the feature.
For sure. Highly recommended. But yeah, I think Disney Plus won the weekend. They had some of the best stuff out there right now. But Warner Bros., they came to play too. They have Wonder Woman, they had the CC Sabathia doc, and they had maybe not a great adaptation, but they had Wendy. We got to talk about the big one, of course. Wonder Woman 1984. They released this bad boy, as everybody knows, as a part of their lineup where everything's going to be going to HBO Max and theaters at the same time. I have no theaters next to me. There's nothing playing downtown. Everything is closed. You have to go all the way to Tinseltown. Literally, it's called Cinemark Tinseltown, 30 miles away. Or you could just go to your couch and watch one of the biggest premieres. Honestly, one of the biggest blockbusters. You know, the last big blockbuster we had, say that 10 times fast, was Sonic and Bad Boys. So this one comes right at the comfort of your own house. It's been one of the most anticipated movies. I didn't hate it, but there was a lot of stuff that could have been better.
Yeah. I was not a fan of this one. I found a lot of it to be frustrating. There are certain elements of it that are good. I think this is a pretty well cast film with charming performances. I really like especially the first hour or so of the movie where they kind of let Kristen Wiig do her harebrained zany thing, and they let Pedro Pascal work the charm, and they have that cute interplay between Gal Gadot and Chris Pine. I think Chris Pine is particularly charming in this role. But when it comes to like the actual plot mechanics, I thought it was all so silly and not really that sensical. I think a lot of people made absurd decisions, and I just didn't buy into the reality of this movie. I also really hated the way it looked. I gotta say, like,
really?
Even though it's a high budget movie, you know, they put a lot of money into these effects and stuff. I thought the first hour or so of this movie, there was some kind of like weird VHS filter until I realized like that's just the beige sets and suits and costuming, and it just didn't look pretty or colorful the way that you want a lot of these comic book movies, superhero movies to look. The way that the poster looked, I thought we were in for a much more neon or multicolor aesthetic.
I mean, we're going to talk about it more on Intercut as well, and I'll get into spoilers on LME. In terms of Diana, you know, there were some interesting choices that they did with this story, considering Gal Gadot, that I was like, that's an interesting thing for a comic book movie to go to. I thought these two were fantastic. I thought they were standouts. Even though everything that's written for them is a little goofy, he gave it his all. He was eating this bad boy up. I just thought that there's things you learn about his character way too late that could have been informed way earlier, and even some of it was a little goofy, but that's a spoiler talk for there. I thought Kristen Wiig was great. Even though they could have fleshed out her character a lot more, and at the end it just becomes more of a trope than anything. And that's because one of the big elements of this movie is this idea of again, I really like the themes, because Pedro Pascal is playing this dude who's telling everybody, you want more, you want more. And when you get into that territory of being able to make whatever wishes you want, the writing gets harder, and it's the cheapest way to write out of the story. There's a lot of things that they miss here and there. I didn't hate the cinematography as much. Some of the best parts was how it captured the 80s, I felt. I think if this movie would have came out in 1984, people would have ate it up. But it's not 1984. And there was a tweet talking about how if this was in theaters, people wouldn't be complaining about it because they just came out of this big majestic thing and they wouldn't notice the problems. Sir, that is not an excuse. If, you know, he was complaining that now we can pause anything and check what's wrong. And it's like, I guess that just means you got to up the ante and write a little bit of a better story.
I think the thing with that is like maybe the reaction is a little bit more negative because it's so readily available, right? Like, I'm not somebody who
Sure.
typically goes and sees a superhero movie on day one, but I watched Wonder Woman 1984 on day one. By the way, I wanted to ask you, if we're going by the Martin Scorsese I heard you paint houses rule, isn't this movie actually called WW84?
I mean, that's how I refer to it. That's how I got it marked over here. What 84? Yeah.
Kraslism in the chat asked, how does it compare to the first movie?
They're even for me. I wasn't a big fan of the first movie. I find it funny that people who don't like this movie are now saying that the first movie. So I guess my bad review of the first movie is now okay. But yeah, I did not hate it more than the first movie. What I disliked was that there's a lot of potential for where they take the story, and they didn't flesh it out completely. I mean, there's some stuff that happened in this movie that makes you wonder, where was that in BVS? Where was that in Justice League? Like, there's elements in here that you would think would be brought up later. But they treat it kind of like a standalone, and with that, there's a lot of issues with it. But again, this is available at the comfort of your own home. I think HBO's doing a month with it, which is really weird. So in 1 month, it's gone. But nonetheless, people are sharing screenshots of this. They're trying to pass something in Congress so that y'all can't do that, and they want to put y'all in jail. But we'll see, because that's going to be one of the big things now that people are streaming, or the big studios are streaming out onto these services and avoiding theaters. They're not going to let you just screenshot this stuff. So it's going to be interesting how all this plays out. I will just say I found it ironic. One of the early lines is, don't take the shortcut. That's a very ironic line to say when it comes to a movie like this. But again, didn't hate it. It's available at home. And I would give it a stream it for sure.
We are talking about Soul earlier, and I think we both preferred Soul to Wonder Woman 1984, even if you're higher on
Didn't think that was a
Wonder Woman than I
comparison,
am.
but yeah.
But when we're talking about what streamer dropped the biggest or most important movie this weekend, do you still think maybe that was HBO Max? Considering I think there was a lot more chatter, at least on Twitter, about Wonder Woman.
Yeah, because it's just a bigger movie, but I think Soul had the better discussions. It's less people bickering about them not liking it and feeling they wasted their time at home, as opposed to I can rewatch Soul over and over again, and that doesn't stop on January 24th. This movie's
Absolutely.
gone.
Yeah. It's got maybe more lasting impact.
For sure. But nonetheless, HBO did have a really good doc out there. For those of you who don't know, CeCe Sabathia was a baseball pitcher, one of the best, honestly. And this is a very interesting story, talking about not just his journey as a baseball player and his personal history growing up, but kind of that cycle that comes back to kind of haunt him towards his later years in his career, dealing not only with some addictions but also some health problems as well. I thought it was a very interesting look into his life and, the cycles of parenthood, especially from a father to a son, and how he's now in that position. It's over on HBO Max. I would recommend it. I thought it was a pretty good watch. My man just can't narrate. They have him narrating, and he's just good. It is a terrible narration. It sounds like a kid giving a third grader giving his kind of speech. This is my dad. Today I will talk about my dad. But nonetheless, pretty good breakdown of his story. So check this one out over on HBO Max, Under the Grapefruit Tree. There was also Wendy, a movie that premiered at Sundance, is a reimagining, as it says here, of Peter Pan. Zach, you saw this, but I don't think you liked it.
Not that much, or at all. And look, time is precious at Sundance, so being in a bad movie is just a reminder that you're not watching a better movie. So as time ticks on, bad movies feel a lot worse at in the hills of Park City, I would say. But this one just did not click for me at all, and it's such a shame because it's the sophomore film from Ben Zeitlin, a director whose debut feature, Beasts of the Southern Wild, I thought was a really interesting debut, a really unique voice and style for a movie, unique and interesting enough that he even earned himself a Best Director nomination. I believe he might have been the youngest or second youngest person to get a nomination for Best Director until like Damien Chazelle or something.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody can correct me in the chat, but this is like potentially a wonder kid in cinema, and this follow-up did not show any of that. It's just this very convoluted retelling of the Peter Pan story, positioning it into somewhat more of a realistic context. He likes to cast these kind of non-actors and get you like this very authentic, lived-in feel, which I thought worked great in his first feature. And here, not so much. It devolves into these children just yelling at the top of their lungs to that point where, when kids yell and it gets to that like pitchy, screamy volume where it's hard to understand what they're saying.
Yeah, that was in Beasts of the Southern Wild.
I think that honestly, I could have maybe enjoyed this more if I had subtitles, but they don't give you subtitles in theaters. I was lost and didn't really like this one. I got very tired of it very quick.
So you would not recommend it?
No.
All right, Wonder Woman 84 and the CC Sabathia story. If you got HBO Max, the better ones on the stuff that they came out with this week. Amazon Prime, though, I thought they got a pretty good lineup that came out. Sylvie's Love and By the Grace of God, both that played at a couple of festivals. We'll start off with Sylvie's Love. I know you got the chance to catch this over at Sundance. I finally caught it on Amazon Prime. I liked it a little bit more than you did. Yeah, this is a story that pretty much takes place. It's a period piece, and you pretty much, I think the way that they pitched it was, it's the right love, but at the wrong time. He wants to work in music. She doesn't even know that she can work in TV, but she realizes that that's a possibility. And it kind of tells their story throughout a couple of time cuts, that show them at like different eras and different periods of time, how they do love each other, but they're always kind of going in different directions. I really enjoyed the production design. I thought it really captured the era. I know the director talked about how he filmed it in 16 millimeter, and he was inspired by Carol. And I got the vibes from Carol. I know people may not love it as much as Carol. But I enjoyed it. I didn't think it was that bad. I actually would have loved to have seen the cinematography up on a bigger screen. So I personally enjoyed it. I don't know your thoughts on it, if you want to speak a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, I am not a person who generally is into romance films. I kind of feel like there's a lack of tension in some romance films. And this is one of those. So while I wasn't as into the plot, I was very into the production design and the look of this film. I think it's very beautifully shot.
Yeah,
and
I
of
loved
course,
it.
you've got Tessa Thompson, who's fantastic in this role. I think it's a setting and a time period with these characters that I don't find that familiar. It's not a movie about these black people that are struggling because of their circumstance. It's a much kinder telling of that story that we don't normally get. A lot of times when we do get these period pieces, it's so centrally focused on racism that I think for a lot of people this will be a refreshing look into a different time. So, it wasn't necessarily for me, but I also think that there are a lot of people who are going to enjoy this one. So if it's something that you've been looking at and something you've been thinking about watching, available now on Amazon, I would highly recommend it for some audiences.
I enjoyed it. I give it 3.5. So if you're curious, check this one out. It's a pretty good movie. And also, By the Grace of God. If you've seen Spotlight, this is an international version of that. I was able to catch this, I think, 2019 Chicago Film Festival. And it's covering pretty much three dudes who know of kind of, the same scandal that would have happened with Spotlight, of some abuse that was happening because of the Catholic Church. This comes from the director who also has a movie out this year that is up for grabs at an international award, Summer of '85. And this is a gay love story that I think takes place in Italy. With this one, again, if you wanted to see a really good drama, because I think this is a very good drama, but wanted to see something that may ruin the rest of your night, you got this one right here. I'd say it's right up to par with Spotlight. If Spotlight worked for you, this hits all of those same beats. Great performances all around, and I'm really looking forward to the next stuff that he makes, because I also like Summer of '85, so I think he's a pretty good director. I'd say this is better than Summer of '85, but again, doesn't have some of the joyfulness that Summer of '85 had before the Summer of '85 has. I don't want to spoil that movie. But By the Grace of God and Sylvie's Love, two movies you can catch over on Amazon Prime. Both solid movies in my opinion, and both better movies than a lot of the stuff that Netflix had this weekend. They had The Midnight Sky, George Clooney's movie. They had We Can Be Heroes. This one's pretty good. Your Name Engraved Herein. DNA, decent. I don't know what Death to 2020 was. And excuse me, I didn't love this one. Other people may. Let's start off with the big one. Midnight Sky, I think, was the biggest thing they were pushing this past week. It may have had a theatrical release if more theaters were open. But this is George Clooney, starring George Clooney, directed by George Clooney, produced by George Clooney. I don't know if he wrote it. No, he did not write it. But it's Mark L. Smith. This is not his best written movie. Midnight Sky was an okay film in where you're kind of seeing the flashbacks of smaller George Clooney realizing that there is a planet that we will be able to inhabit. And because of that, there's like this whole, the same type of story where we're leaving Earth in order to find a different home. But besides seeing it in flashbacks, there's also George Clooney interacting with a little girl in the spaceship when he thought he was alone, and at the same time he's also waiting for this other craft to arrive near him. There is a cute aspect of its ending, but it's clearly all built on that ending moment. Everything beforehand, it's like it's just stretching it thin just to get there. So I fully can't recommend it. I did not think it was that powerful. This is one of those movies that would have been a rent it back in the day when we see that it's a George Clooney movie and people want to check it out. But now we have streaming, and I think it needs to be a little bit better than that. I mean, nobody even saw the Tom Hanks one that came out on Apple Plus, that they bought for $75. So I feel the same thing here. I didn't think it looked that great. The writing was very subpar. What else has George Clooney directed, honestly? Let me check over here.
It's interesting because I think he started off a lot more successful than he's been more recently. Confessions of a Dangerous Mind was his debut, and that movie doesn't have great reviews, but I kind of like it. It comes from a Charlie Kaufman script, although Kaufman doesn't like some of the changes Clooney made. Then he had probably his two most successful movies, Good Night and Good Luck, which of course got a few Oscar nominations, and I think it was Ides of March next.
Mm-hmm.
And since then, it's been just kind of like a couple swings and misses. Leatherhead, Suburbicon. He didn't even do press for Monuments Men. It's been a little bit downhill in the career of George Clooney, it's a shame because I kind of liked the ambition and artistry that he seems to shoot for, even if he never necessarily achieves it. It's his first acting role in 6 years too.
Wow. Well, look, Calm Goodfire had said it's Interstellar but worse. I didn't even think of Interstellar, but yeah, I mean, that's how bad it is from that perspective. It tries to go for something it didn't really complete in my mind, but maybe for somebody else, if you really like George Clooney. We Can Be Heroes, though, should have been for me. I was excited for this one because the marketing was talking about how they were, it was going to be a Shark Boy and Lava Girl kind of a sequel, right? It ends up being a little bit more of a standalone story, and where you have all of these Avenger-like heroes, right? And they have kids, and all of the kids kind of get swept up, and they want to train them because at one point, all of the parent heroes, they lose. They're all gone. So if all of the parent heroes are gone, it's got to be the little kids who have to come in. This is shot like a Wiggles episode. I've seen Robert Rodriguez do stuff for $7,000. I know the budget for this isn't $7,000. I am aware that it is a kid's film. I don't believe that should take away from it. I find it interesting that this is a movie targeted at the people who grew up with Shark Boy and Lava Girl. And then they don't target it for them now that they're older. I don't know. I felt that was a missed opportunity.
Right. It definitely seems not targeted towards the adults who grew up with Shark Boy and Lava Girl, and rather a new generation, because this is very like juvenile material. I watched about 15 minutes of it and then just decided like, okay, it's like, not for me. That's fine. I can live with it not being for me. But yeah, it's kind of hard to watch some of it. It's so fake looking and
yeah,
I don't know, broad in unnecessary ways. I'm sure that children of a certain age will find it all fun and goofy and exciting, but it's not one of those that's like fun for the whole family. You know?
I mean, so this little girl right here plays the daughter of Shark Boy and Lava Girl. They did bring Lava Girl back. They did not bring Shark Boy back, as was highly reported. Man doesn't even say anything. He says one thing. It's not even a word. It's a shark growl. I don't know what sound sharks make, but that's what he does. I understand that there are kids movies, but that doesn't mean that they have to be like that goofy. I saw this back to back with Wonder Woman, and my sister was like, "Is that the bad guy from the other?" The fact that Pedro Pascal is in both movies.
Right.
Yeah, you see the difference. I understand that it's for kids, but it still could have been better, especially because Shark Boy and Lava Girl is better than this, and that was also for kids.
I did see one tweet that said Wonder Woman 1984 wasn't the best superhero movie featuring Pedro Pascal that came out this weekend. And that's part of what got me to try and watch We Can Be Heroes.
Look,
and I would emphasize try to watch.
Yeah. No. Hey, we keep it a buck here. I may have not loved Wonder Woman 84, but I'm not going to do it dirty like that. This is another movie. I always have that one movie that I'm trying to catch right before we start the streams. I'm always watching movies. The only thing that stops me from watching movies is recording or probably going to the bathroom. But this is a movie that just came out on Netflix. It was highly anticipated because I believe it's one of Taiwan's highest grossing LGBT films. Opens up with a scripture as well. I thought that was ballsy, and it tells the story of these two dudes who are kind of like, I don't know if you remember we just covered it not too long ago, Kalel 15, and how a big problem there is the sex education or lack thereof that is going on in that country. Same thing here, because the school that they go to is a school that's also a really Christian Catholic type school, so they're implementing a completely different lifestyle than what these guys are trying to do. I know the director had said that he had written this as a love story about himself, and that he then translated that and it became an LGBT story. From what I've seen right now, not logging it, but putting it on people's radar, because so far I think this may be the best thing that Netflix came out with this week. I thought it was a pretty solid drama, so I will be finishing that as soon as we're done with the stream. So put this one on your radar, your name engraved here in. But there was also another one that I did get to catch, a foreign film by an actress-director called Ma Wen. I had no idea that she was the star and also the director. I thought she killed it with this movie. It pretty much covers her childhood, but fully grown up after the loss of her grandparent, who was taking care of her, who was always there for her and kind of stopped a lot of the abuse that was happening. But now that he's gone, it kind of delves into the side of her trying to figure out her past, really from the perspective, and it's the name is called DNA, of what her heritage is. What happens when you realize you have a lot of rooted trauma from the places that you have moved from your ancestors, and even more so from a childhood where your mom was kind of abusive, where your dad may have not been there. It's a very heavy-hitting drama, I will say that, but knowing that she directs it and stars in it, big props to her, as well as Fanny Ardant. I had seen her in this other movie, La Belle Époque, which I believe is also now out on VOD. This was a little TIFF movie that I had caught. I really enjoyed her performance there, so it was really cool to see her in this movie as well. But again, DNA, it's a nice little drama, very heavy hitting. Like, if you have problems with your parents and you realize all these generational trauma that gets passed on, this movie gets into that. And it's a lot of just family arguments throughout the film. Very powerful performance all around, I felt, even if it gets too melodramatic at times. So if you're curious in watching a movie like that, definitely keep your eyes out for this movie and Ma Wen in general, because she did a good job, I think, handling both directing and starring in it. Death to 2020.
So the latest Charlie Booker project for Netflix, of course, he's the guy who is responsible for Black Mirror. And he also had a series in the UK called Screenwipe, where he would often do a year-end wrap-up.
Oh, okay.
So he's not unfamiliar to the year-end wrap-up, although this is in a bit of a different package. I'm not so sure it worked the same for you as in previous years.
Not for me. It is kind of like they told him, yo, do you have another Black Mirror you can make? And he's like, no. He's like, oh, okay, well, we still have this big budget. Who do you want to hire? You just saw them all on screen. He just spent a lot of money hiring a lot of really big actors to come in and just kind of recap the year. I wasn't the biggest fan of it, but it is a mockumentary. It's supposed to be satire, and I have seen YouTube videos that have wrapped up the year a little bit better. Really, all this has going for it, in my opinion, is the fact that he's got these big stars. There are some funny jokes in there. On the trailer, they have this Quibi joke that I thought was kind of hilarious. But this thing is written by 18 different writers. Like, it's a sketch. It's different sketches, yeah. I'm assuming, from here and there. Charlie Booker and Annabelle Jones, who did Black Mirror, they created this, but at the same time, it is directed by two different directors. One of which you and I actually do like. They had directed all of the episodes of I Think You Should Leave with Tim Robinson, along with Akiva, though. So there are funny moments in the doc, and I would say that comes a lot from half of the direction, but then there's a lot of other stuff where they just stop to talk about the Netflix originals that are out. That's not funny. Yeah, I didn't think it was that great, but I will say Kristen Milioti is in this. They're all playing like hyper versions of themselves, you know. So you have Lisa Kudrow, who's playing like a Republican spokesperson. Samuel L. Jackson's playing like, I don't know, some corporate dude. She plays a Karen. She is committed to it, dude. Even though the writing isn't there, like I'm not going to justify all the jokes. She kills it. Like her performance was too good to be in this mockumentary. Yeah, she actually did something with her role, even if it wasn't written that well. But I like that. I like to see when, you know, you watch movie 43 and someone is still trying to give it their all. That was her in this movie for me. Not calling it as bad as movie 43, but yeah, just not for me. Not for me, but hey, check it out. It's over on Netflix. It's Black Mirror. If Black Mirror was looking at us as a TV series, so there's that. Ariana Grande, just a quick little login over here. Not bad, but I thought this was going to be more behind the scenes than it really just is a concert film. You do get a little bit of a look behind the scenes and the different stuff that happens as she's on tour. I guess it's cute, you know, to see her kind of go from like the PG star to then kind of just swearing to be like, oh, it's so exhausting, but I love all of you guys. But it's more a concert film than it is a behind the scenes look. So it's all right. Not bad.
Caitlin is a fan of Ariana's, so she was excited to watch this one, and she too was disappointed that it was more concert film than behind the scenes look. Which, look, that's what a lot of people want or like. Obviously, in a year where we don't get to see live music performances, that might be refreshing for a lot of people, but it's also not the glimpse at the personality, I guess, that some people want. Although we should maybe mention, given that we are primarily a movies show, she does talk about her love of Midsummer, I believe, at some point in this documentary.
I'd rather see that like on a one-on-one. But yeah, it was okay. If you are a fan of her, I mean, it's good concert footage, so there's definitely that to check out from the comfort of your own home. All right, we have a couple more to get through, just some of the Hulu picks, and then something that wasn't released in VOD or virtual theaters, but theaters. There's no other way to see that right now, unless you're a critic getting links, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Hulu had some good ones that I've talked about in the past. This was a movie that I was able to catch in Fantasia, a documentary on David Arquette called You Cannot Kill David Arquette. I really enjoyed this documentary, so I'm glad that it's now on Hulu for other people to catch, because this is one where he's showing you everything, and I got to respect someone who's putting it all out there, who's in a sense trying to regain a lot of the stuff that he may have lost early on in his career, and feeling that a lot of people didn't take him seriously, and it's kind of covering his wrestling career that not a lot of people may have known that he had early on. A lot of people saw that as a joke, and they said that going that route was going to ruin his movie career. And he had a long period where he didn't have a movie career. And now he's like, you know what? Screw it then. I'm just going to continue doing what I love to do. And because of that, I think it's a pretty solid documentary. There's some crazy stuff that it covers as well. But it's on Hulu for you to catch. I would have given it a really good rent, maybe even a junior price. So to catch it in the comfort of your own home, highly recommend it. As well as The Owners. This was one that I was struggling to kind of pitch as a rent it, because I do like a lot of it in it. A lot of the stuff that happens, it pretty much covers these three dudes who just want to rob this house, but in doing so, they don't realize that the elderly couple who they may be robbing may be worse than them. It also has Macy Williams, who plays the girlfriend of one of the dudes, and there is this craziness that happens where they don't realize they're not the ones breaking into the home. They're the ones getting trapped in this home. It is now available to stream, so if you weren't convinced to give it a chance as a rental, I think it's definitely worth to stream it. A very goofy ending, but they know it, like they wanted that goofy ending. They wanted that type of ending with a certain two actors in this film. So I enjoyed it. I had a good time with it, and I would definitely recommend it. Give it a chance now that it's streaming over on Hulu. But to wrap this up is a movie that we have an LME coming out for. We have a Let Us Explain coming out that's already been recorded.
Yeah.
Just trying to get a little bit more footage, because this has been one that is under wraps. There's not a lot we could say about it other than when we first saw this movie at Sundance, it was split. They talked about one of the screenings had people duking it out. Someone had said, "This is dumb." Then someone went, if you don't like it, leave. So this is a movie that threw out, even after Sundance, another crop of critics got to see it at other festivals or at screening links, and they liked it. But then the summer ones, they didn't like it. So then a lot of people, when they got it in the fall, went in with low expectations. So then they liked it. But then the people who didn't like it got mad at those people. It has been a crazy rollout. And the movie's finally out. Kinda. It's out in theaters, so there is no way to see it yet as a virtual screening. From what I know, it's a lot of people who've had virtual links or were able to see it at a film festival early on. Zach and I really, really enjoyed this movie.
Yeah.
But people are split on this bad boy right here. I am not. I thought it does.
Yeah.
It does it well. This is a thriller that hits at everything it needs to, and I believe that it still does a lot of. As a revenge thriller, if you were just seeing it as that, just like a lot of the ones that we got in the 90s, people wouldn't bat an eye. But it covers subjects that are obviously very close to home to many people and subjects that are very heavy-hitting. And I still think that it does that even more profound than a movie that would have just sat you down and talked to you about it.
Right. And it's a movie that engages with some uncomfortable issues, but in a package that maybe is a little bit more approachable, even if this is a movie that's like a bit of a like live wire, I think there are going to be people that are upset by the movie's handling of issues around sexual assault and consent. But I think that's what is exciting about a movie like this, that it is daring to go into that dark material and find comedy in it. That's why we have the term dark comedy. And I think it's really effective, not just as a comedy, but as a thriller, keeping you on the edge of your seat, guessing what could happen next, what's going to happen next. I really, really dug this one. I'm very impressed by Emerald Fennell in her feature debut. Of course, was previously on Killing Eve, the showrunner for the second season of that. So it makes a lot of sense that she comes with that kind of background with something really substantial here. And also, shouts out to Carey Mulligan, who I don't think I've ever seen her in a performance quite like this one, but she is so alluring and
she killed
commanding on screen. So good at the suspense and the comedy in this role. She's so good.
Ooh, we got some comments here. So Joe Cool, he says, it seems like it's trying too hard to play the woman good, men bad. It's funny to see that Emerald has gone out and she's like, I guess I got to do the opposite of Captain Marvel and be like, no, this is not that. I'm telling you right now, as someone who just made an entire video on the craft, it is not that. I've seen a lot of people who have that opinion haven't done that thing where you see the movie. I think it lives up to it. Don't let that be a detractor from like a really good thriller, one of the best thrillers of the year. No, it doesn't do that. I hate when people like just refuse to watch a movie. It's like, nah. Don't be the snowflake you don't want to be. I see Cinderside also says, you just mean toxic feminism. Nah, give it a chance. Check it out. I think you would like it. I think it hits everything that a thriller would. But again,
not to mention that the movie does have take issue with several women too. Like it's not
for sure. That's what I'm
solely
saying.
Focused on the men. It is largely focused on men, but I think the movie is much more nuanced than maybe its trailers or maybe its plot summary would have you believe.
Now, I'm curious. Jay says that there is some plot points that they think that should be pointed out. That is one I would like to have the discussion with, because even in the discussion that we had, we were going back and forth. I had a problem with something, but you guys kind of had an answer to it. I'm really curious to pick up the script. I know they were giving out the script as well. But I really like this movie. I just really hope. I've seen. It's interesting. I've never seen a movie when you get Captain Marvel. There was a lot of people who wanted to cancel it because they thought it was too much about women. And then you'll have other movies where people think, oh, it's just the feminists canceling this. I've never seen a movie canceled by the feminists and the meninists at the same time. That to me is so intriguing to watch as a fan.
Yeah. And Cinderseed, don't worry. I think we're using your comment as like a springboard
don't worry about
to a discussion, not
yeah, you're good.
That's why we use all the questions and stuff, is to lead us into a bigger conversation. So
like this.
Glad that you loved Promising Young Woman as we did too.
Jay said, I thought the editing was terrible personally. It's interesting.
Interesting.
I've had the chance to catch it twice.
We'll talk about that on Intercut, and definitely.
But yeah, we have a whole other video that's going to come out for this one right here. I mean, people can't even watch it unless you have a theater anyways. But yeah, I like Promising
Yeah.
Young Woman because it's got a lot to talk about. But
So
nonetheless, we had a bunch of movies right here that we covered. You were going to say
yeah, I
something?
did want to throw out though. So Promising Young Woman, along with News of the World, which is in theaters over the Christmas break. Both of them are Universal movies, and Universal signed that deal with AMC to potentially put their movies on VOD as soon as 17 days after they're in theaters. So I believe we could get both of those movies as soon as January 11th on VOD. Be sure to keep a
Ooh.
lookout.
Nice. Now, I did want to say over here because I think you caught 3 really quick picks. I know you'll mention them more on Intercut, but I saw you caught some movies.
Yeah, I did. Which one are you most curious about?
This
Because I know, yeah. All right, let's talk Beast Clawing at Straws, because this was one that I've seen nobody talking about until
last
you
week.
until you said it was really good. Yara Zaidi said that it was one of her favorite films of the year. So it's like, all right, I got 2 people I'm trusting on this one.
It's
Let's
good.
go. Yong Hoon Kim, his directorial debut. It's this movie about these like underworld criminals and different people. And to me, did this not also give you like early Guy Ritchie vibes, like a Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels ensemble cast crashing into one another crime flick?
I think I have it above Promising Young Woman, bro. So yes, I very much
Whoa.
enjoy this movie. Very much enjoy this movie. I know we're gonna talk about it on Intercut. Talk about
Yeah.
Last Blockbuster, and I saw. Did you see? Remember last week we said I Used to Go Here wasn't on HBO,
It is.
and then they put it back on HBO.
Yeah, so I don't know what was up with that.
Yeah, your thoughts on this one? Because I think you gave it the score that I was saying it deserves, which is a 3 stars, 3.5
Right.
if you have some nostalgia, 4 if this was your childhood. I see you gave it a 3. You agree with me that the directing could have been better, right?
Yeah, so like I don't think it's a very good documentary, but it's about something that you and I both love.
Mm-hmm.
So as like a fun 90-ish minute look at the collapse of Blockbuster and this quirky story of this one Blockbuster that's still open in Bend, Oregon, and don't worry, there is a coronavirus update in the
Yeah,
credits.
appreciate it.
It's a great story. You know, I think for some, one of the reasons I was sort of criticizing it in my mind is because it's got this very silly approach to what it's doing. You know, they do reenactments with like puppets or with like toys and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that, and I don't love that stuff, but that might be the kind of thing that a casual viewer enjoys about a movie like this. So I think if you want just like a fun look at the Blockbuster story, check out The Last Blockbuster. If you're a nerd like me who listens to NPR, check out the Vox podcast Land of the Giants. I believe it's season 2. It has a great episode talking about Blockbuster and how Netflix overcame Blockbuster that I think taught me just as much as this documentary did.
Yeah, there's even another one. I guess I'd log it over here. Something I just recently saw was Netflix versus the World, which came out on Prime, and it is literally there's a section in the Blockbuster doc and in the Netflix doc that is just the same thing, just told from either the Blockbuster's perspective or Netflix's perspective. But yeah, I would put this one on people's radar if you guys wanted to see a little bit of behind the scenes of how Netflix came up and won. And then the Blockbuster one, if you want to see how Blockbuster came up and then just became no more. But then you got to catch this one. I see we rated it the same.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting story. Of course, Gillian Jacobs stars in it as an author who goes back to her college and kind of finds herself in a little bit of a like mid-quarter life ennui, if you want to call it that,
Mhm.
where she's out of college and she's trying her hand in the professional world and finding it not as satisfying as she wants to. Actually, it's kind of a good companion film to Soul in a weird way.
Okay.
But I even though this is sort of like a very indie, quirky movie, I think a lot of the characters and writing is pretty fun here. And some of these indie movies, it's a little bit like, what's the great point? But I think that this one has some fun things, some fun observations on life, and some fun performances, particularly from Gillian Jacobs in the center of it. So yeah,
Mhm.
I dug this one. Not great, but fun watch
Yep.
if you have HBO.
Pretty decent stream right there. But like I said, we're gonna wrap up all the movies that we saw in a bit after we answer some questions. We got some questions over on the Q&A. I know some people were asking some stuff about different things. Let's start with Devesh right here. I see Devesh had asked a question as you pull up some of the other ones. Let me explain. Have you seen the short film Rebooted? It's on YouTube. It's about a skeleton from Jason and Argonauts. Let's see, falling into a crisis due to the fall in practical effects. It's like 2 minutes long. Here's one of the things we've been working on a best shorts of, and it's been interesting to see Netflix get some more shorts, as well as HBO has some pretty good shorts as well. So now it's every studio is also trying to go for different type of short movies. HBO is obviously going for those film festival ones. Netflix is going for a lot of like, I guess Netflix has got the biggest variety, while Pixar has their Pixar shorts, their Spark Notes, or Spark Shorts, I believe is what they're calling it,
Right.
in which Burrow would be one of them. Oh, it's right here. Spark Shorts. There you go. You even see it on the poster right there. So I've always been a big fan of shorts. I've heard them say that it's like when you watch a short, that is you seeing where film's going to be in the future. Because a lot of these shorts, if it's not the artist becoming a feature filmmaker, it is usually the short story being adapted into Whiplash, and then Whiplash the feature, you know? So I think it's dope that now there's going to be more accessibility for these shorts, because it's usually hard to catch a short anywhere. Like, no one's buying shorts or renting shorts. And with streaming services, I think it's going to be a little bit better. Pulling it up over here, I saw the one you talked about. There's a couple of rebooted.
I feel like it's probably that first one.
Could be, but they said it was 2 minutes, so just tweet me the link. Tweet it to me, and I'll be sure to check that bad boy out.
Awesome.
Let's see.
I wanted to take another question that Devesh had. Should Soul be docked a few points for primarily being for adults, similar to how Midway lost a few points for being an action film? You know, this is one of the classic criticisms of some of Pixar's movies, is like, how much are they for kids really? Like WALL-E, while being
all of them
absolutely beautiful film, is maybe not as entertaining for young kids as it is for older kids or adults. And I think Soul, you know, in Soul's case, I think it's enough for kids that I wouldn't dock it points. You know, I think it's still got some silly moments and some funny characters and funny designs that I think most kids would be able to enjoy it too.
Yeah, I am not that. I definitely believe it's a family film. I just think that we're not used to talking to our families about these things, and that has been the most apparent. I've heard a lot of people say, "Is this too much for kids?" I was like, I think you could trust your kids with a little bit more. That's my opinion. I guess that's just my parenting style. Now we're reviewing parenting styles, but I don't think so. I see it as a family film.
Yeah,
that's my opinion. But I guess that's also because I just queued up some really crazy animations. Have you heard of this one called Wolf House? There is some end of the year stuff that I've been getting ready to watch. This is not a family film. So I guess I've just seen animation also push to its craziest limits, that when I see something like Soul, I don't see it pushing age limits. I see it just pushing boundaries more in sort of like the topics that we don't discuss with our families, that I think definitely should be, because that conversation that is had in Soul between a mother and a son, that's for everyone. That's for everyone.
Kraslism asked, is Sylvie's Love Tessa Thompson's best movie, or the best one that she's featured in?
I wouldn't say. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say that I'm trying to think if there's a better movie that she's been the star of.
Okay.
It's definitely not the best one she's been featured in. I'd put at least Thor Ragnarok and Sorry to Bother You, if not a few others above it.
Well, she starred in Little Woods. I think she did a good job in Little Woods as well.
Yeah, but I would say Little Woods above Sylvie's Love too.
Actually, I don't know about that. They're kind of tied a little for me. I like the story in Little Woods a little bit more.
Yeah, depends whether or not you think Sorry to Bother You or Creed are big enough roles.
I think she has a really big performance. I mean, I like Dear White People more than that. I know not everyone's a fan of the movie, but she is the lead. Yeah, she is the lead in that. You know, she's been in Annihilation. I'm a fan of Men in Black. Yeah. I mean, it's up there. I can't wait to see her get more leading roles, because I think the way she's picking projects right now, she's on a roll.
Yeah, absolutely. Jonathan just asked, what is your worst film of 2020? You know, we are going to make our best of lists for Intercut, but we don't really like doing the worst of lists. I don't want to spend that much time.
I got one.
About the worst movies. But there's always one that's worth ragging on a little.
Downhill was absolute dookie. I'm done complaining about Downhill. There was some disappointing movies this year for sure. I can't think of some off the top of my head other than Downhill because that's obviously one of the first ones that come to mind. Nothing else. I know you have one, dude.
I got 3, and we talked about one of them on this episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, Wendy, I don't like. Antebellum, I really don't like. And Last Thing You Wanted, they blow up a dog in that movie. I don't like it.
They do, yeah. I'm not even gonna search up Antebellum, but yeah. Yeah, I didn't hate Antebellum as much as everybody else, but I do think it's so goofy. So yeah, that would be some of our worst ones. Let's see, what else do we have? I saw somebody asking about the Endgame video over here. Will you ever do a review on Endgame? Yeah, I think so. One day. Yeah, why not? One day. One day for sure.
Natalie asked, are you satisfied with Soul's ending?
I'm going to be honest, without getting into spoilers, because we are on a stream, there is one aspect dealing with the character of Terry that irks me. But it's very rare for a movie to bypass a lot of things that I'm going to give it a pass for, because that means I'm enjoying it a lot, and that's the magic of Soul for me. But there is a thing with Terry at the end that I was like, nah, this isn't. No. But the rest of it I thought was really cool, especially because there was a line that ends the movie. Kemp Powers talked about changing it because it was more so not about all the struggles that you're going to face in life, but that life is worth it despite of those struggles. I don't think that spoils it, but I think it adds a little bit to what they were going for overall with the ending of the film.
Yeah, I know there's some people who maybe aren't satisfied because they didn't explicitly solve a thing that they're talking about throughout the film, but I kind of like that it's a little bit more open to interpretation. So there's a revelation towards the end that I don't know if as clear as some people wanted it to be.
Yeah,
I liked it.
All right, let's see. Let's do 5 more questions.
Matthew O'Connor asks, memories of a murder or Zodiac? Two of the classic serial killer movies.
Oh, that's who hired this man to ask this question right here?
Yeah. You going Bong Joon-ho or you going David Fincher?
I'm going you answer this question first. That's what I'm going.
We just did our David Fincher movie bracket over on the Intercut podcast where we tried to determine our favorite David Fincher movie ever. And spoilers, Zodiac gets pretty far. I rewatched that movie before we did the bracket, so maybe it's just a little fresher in my mind.
Yeah, that's the only thing.
I really, really love Zodiac. That's where I'd go at least right now. I
haven't seen Memories in so long. And now it finally got its digital release not too long ago on VOD, because it was like I wanted to watch it as soon as Parasite had come out. It was nowhere available. Then it had its theatrical run, and now it's out. So I do need to watch that one again. I don't even have it logged on Letterboxd because I was way back in the day. So recency bias says Zodiac, but I mean the fact that is a banger of a question. I like a question like that. That's a good matchup right there. So right now,
always good to ask us like an either or. I feel like that gets our brains going.
But that's a good one. Usually we get it's like, do you think this masterpiece or this childhood favorite that I have? And it's like the masterpiece. So Zodiac right now, but I will be getting the VOD release. I'm hoping that they do a Criterion or something more special now that they have it digitally restored. So we'll see.
Now Showing asks, going into 2021, what's your most anticipated movie? It's interesting question because not only do we have the 2021 movies to anticipate, but we have a whole bunch of 2020 movies to anticipate. Because the thing that comes to the top of my mind is Dune. We're getting a new Denis Villeneuve movie. I always like a movie from Denis, and we should have been watching it right about now, but
we would have.
A little pandemic had to happen. So
yeah, I mean, I know we have a ton of ones that we have that are going to be coming out at Sundance, and so far right now, On the Count of Three is one of my most hyped up from there. But there's a lot of stuff that's going to be coming out from Warner Bros. Straight at the comfort of your own home as well. So Dune supposedly is going back to theaters. Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, there's a lot of updates. That's the latest right now. But yeah, the Sundance crop is looking pretty promising, so I'm excited to get some dispatches out from there.
Yvonne in the chat says, I'm ready for Shiva Baby to come in theaters next year so I can watch it. That's one that we've seen already, but
favorite comedy of the year.
All the same.
And I think it may be one of my top 10s.
Movie of 2021 so far?
What do you mean? Does it count as 2021? Because I'm counting it. I guess it is 2021, right?
It's not officially released, man.
Ah, man, I have it as my top comedy of of 2020 so far
2020.
right now. But yeah, I guess so. Well, no, Minari is also coming out, even though it is part of the different cycle. It's still a 2021 movie, so I guess Minari is above it. I don't know. This is the last week to make these lists. Zach and I, we take up to the 31st, so we have that going. I had pulled up over here. Yaron had said, "Have you seen Sweet Thing or My Name Is Baghdad?" Just added both of those bad boys onto my watch list. I will be adding it to, like I just said, as soon as I'm done here. I still have 35 movies, which isn't bad. That is not a bad like final list that you have to wrap up on. But thank you, Yaron, for making it 37. I appreciate that, though. I like seeing what I've missed so far. So that's the best part about having this Q&A right here.
Yeah. Anwar Asi asked us favorite Charlie Chaplin movie. I don't know if you have gone all the way back to the silent era and seen our boy Charles. But I really do like City Lights. I think that's my favorite of those.
Come on.
But there's a lot of great silent comedies. I like to, whenever we get the chance to talk about it, I like to shout out Harold Lloyd, who I feel like is the forgotten one among the trio of Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, and
I was about to say Buster Keaton, bro.
Yeah, Buster Keaton's where it's at. But shouts to Safety Last. That's a really great movie from that era.
All right. I had just recently seen Great Dictator not too long ago, so I'm gonna say Great Dictator because I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but yeah, that's one. Someone had asked about, do we watch movies at home or at a movie theater? Right now it's at home, but usually it's been theaters. That's why Zach and I can fully attest to anyone complaining about the switch that's been happening. Now, we damn near lived in a movie theater. The amount I spent in a movie theater, that was rent. Like, you're at a movie theater a lot when you have AMC Premiere, and you're still spending more money at AMC because you only get 3 movies. You're maxing that out. So it's been a completely different year, but I'm excited to go back to the theaters eventually soon. But I'm not going to lie. To me, a movie is a movie, and I've discovered a lot of movies from Blockbuster, and that was watching it on a regular television at home, a DVD quality, So I still think that it's not so much about a movie popping out to you, but a movie sucking you in, and that can be on any display. But as Scorsese would say, at least a pretty big iPad.
Yeah. Obviously, right now it's been adjusting to the home viewing experience and trying to make that as good as possible. And whenever I can, I try to put things up at least on my TV so that I'm watching on a somewhat big screen, if not as big as I'd get in the movie theater, because I do miss that movie experience.
Yeah.
And, for certain movies like Greyhound, which we talked about, I think on the live stream maybe 2 weeks ago, that you actually kind of enjoyed, I caught up with and enjoyed more than I expected to. That's the kind of movie that really would have benefited from getting to watch it on the biggest screen possible. So, I think we both, whenever we can, try to watch a movie in a theater, but there's so much out there, and not all of it even gets a theatrical release, especially with all this stuff heading to streaming. So
for sure,
wherever it is, we will watch it, especially if it's good.
Kelly GT asked, if a movie is based on a book, do you read it before or after watching the film show? I have stuck to watching or reading after the fact, unless it's something that I was already interested in. Because I just want to see what the experience is that I'll get from the movie, and then I'll read the book after the fact. And reading the book after the fact is usually better than it ruining the movie for you, if that makes any sense,
It gives you a lot of false expectations for
there
the
you
movie.
go. Thank you. So I feel doing it in reverse is a lot better, because you're still going to get all the information, but I think it's a better thing to watch the movie as fresh as possible and then follow up with the book.
Yeah, and I think that also saves you the struggle of having to read so many books. Like, for example, if you are really committed to reading things before you see the movie, then you might have to have read Hillbilly Elegy, only to have sat through Hillbilly Elegy. And doing it the reverse way, you wait until you get a movie like I'm Thinking of Ending Things, and you get interested enough that you want to actually dive into the book and not feel like you're forced because there's a movie coming out soon. Although I'm with you, if there's something that I know I'm going to be interested in, actually I'm Thinking of Anything, this is a good example of that, then sometimes I might try to read the book ahead of time if I feel like I have the time to actually do that.
For sure. All right, let's do 3 more and then we wrap it up.
All right, so Tushar asked us, with MGM looking to sell, what would the movie industry look like with Disney buying them and get furthering their monopoly? It's interesting the way that Disney has been expanding and buying up all these different companies, whether that dates back to their acquisition of Marvel and Lucasfilms, or it's their more recent forays into buying out 20th Century Fox. Uh, there's now the rumors that they could buy MGM as well, which are the purveyors of the Bond movies, aside from others. So I don't know. Do you have a worry about that happening?
I have been saying these streaming services, I'm a broken record with this bad boy. You can see them all right here. These are going to be the new theaters. These are the new channels. This is the new TV. This is the new everything. How many of these are owned by a parent company? I mean, we know who owns Amazon. We know who Disney has. Hulu is Disney. HBO Max is AT&T. So it's not just going to be a matter of what you watch there. It's also going to be a matter of however much you stream. If they're putting an internet cap above you, if AT&T is your internet service and HBO Max is what you're watching, it's not just going to be the price of HBO Max. It's going to be how much data you're taking. Peacock. Oh, we've been talking about this one being one of the ones that's going to come up out of nowhere. They're getting The Office at the turn of the year. They're going to have a lot of content. They've been really quiet. They're owned by Comcast. So if you have Comcast and you're streaming, it's not just, however much Peacock is, it's how much are you paying for your internet. So that's where I think it's going to get very dangerous, and just MGM selling is just going to mean that there's going to be more stuff for them to pitch. But this is really going to be the future. In my mind, this is just the truth. A lot of these are what, $5.99, $6.99, but you got Netflix that's already pushing $20. You got Disney that's going to be raising its prices next year. So to me, it's going to come down to a point where these are almost going to be $35. They're going to be the price of what a movie pass was. And that's the only way it's going to be sustainable in my mind, to be able to have families all on one Netflix account, to be able to have new movies coming out fresh. It's going to have to be at a price point like that. So instead of the Disney Plus being $5.99, but you got to pay $30 for Mulan, it's going to be, I feel, $30 or change for Disney Plus. And maybe you'll get the new Pixar movie for $5-6. So it's going to be a lot of changes, dude. There's going to be a lot of changes, and that all comes out with who's selling what. And we don't even have a Sony streaming yet, and they have an entire studio.
Yeah, and I think the thing about Disney potentially acquiring MGM that is troubling is that there are fewer and fewer places kind of producing movies of that scale, of that quality, right? There will, I think, still be independent production companies that pop up, but it's not every day that you get or very rarely that you get a new major player that can even afford to make a film like one of the Bond films.
Exactly.
So I think as a fan of movies first, I like there being as many studios out there producing works from filmmakers that I love.
Mm-hmm.
But consolidation is the way of corporate America right now. So I don't think good movies will go away suddenly.
No.
But the options get fewer and fewer. People were ragging on Warner Brothers for their decision to move movies to HBO Max, but at the end of the day, I think if Warner Brothers wants to pay $100 million to make the next Patty Jenkins movie, she'll sign up for it.
For sure.
And we'll still be getting those movies from whatever studios are around.
Let's see, we even had a comment here. Someone had brought up about Mubi. They don't have a parent company because they're the new independent theaters to a degree. Criterion Channel, they don't have the parent company. They're their own service. So it's going to be a matter of, if someone is paying for Netflix because that's where they know content is going to be, these are going to be the new niche music boxes online. And even with the push for virtual theaters, which you and I have been a big fan of throughout the year, not a lot of people have done that. I've seen a lot of spikes happen once the movie's out on VOD. Another round was in virtual theaters for like 3 weeks. We talked about it, but it wasn't until it was out on VOD that people started watching it, because now they could get it through the Vudu, through whatever service they already had. So I'm curious to get Mubi, though. Mubi's got some originals they're picking up. I know they got the Yorgos short as well.
Yep.
So
Mimic.
Yeah, it's just going to be a lot of streaming services out there, and they're going to start doing packages. I'm already seeing that. I log into Amazon Prime, and they're like, you can get Showtime, and I forgot what the bundle is, but yeah, it's going to be bundles upon bundles upon bundles. Sound familiar, Zach?
Cable bundles.
Let's do our final.
Right back to it.
Right? Let's do our final ones, and then we check out.
P7 asked, have you been to theaters during the pandemic? I personally haven't been to a indoor movie theater since I think way back in February, unfortunately. But I did get to go to a drive-in. I haven't gone to as many as I hoped at one point, and now I think it's too cold for them to be operating around here, at least. But yeah, I tried to do the drive-in experience because I do miss my movie theaters, man.
The last movie I saw, there was still a Mulan poster up on the sides, advertising it was going to come out in March. This is the last movie I saw in theaters, man. I still believe. And it was funny because my story for this is that this is like the following weekend, everything would get shut down. And I remember I had reserved seats, and there was supposed to be a bunch of other people. I guess they didn't believe because they didn't show up to the screening. It was only us. So at least I could say that one of my final showings was me in a ginormous IMAX because they played this bad boy in IMAX. But I have not been to one since. Luckily, we've been able to get a lot of screeners. We've been able to do a lot of virtual festivals. But it definitely has changed the way that people consume media and stuff. And honestly, it's one of the main reasons why we started the streams and to keep it on every Monday, because of that energy that kind of goes away when not everybody is looking at the same box office, when not everybody is looking at, not all the attention is on the same movies. But I'm not opposed to the accessibility that we now get to just stream everything, to be able to have that movie that we could just turn on and watch it anywhere. But I do miss kind of like the weekend matchups. That's why I really like this week kind of being the first really big virtual box office. But damn, I wish I caught Tenet in theaters. That's the one that once they fix it back up, I've been wanting to see this one at the biggest Navy Pier IMAX theater that we have here in Chicago. And I have not been able to do that because it was closed for Nolan's last movie. It wasn't available for the previous one. I'm excited to go back.
Yeah, Vanessa Munder asked, have you guys seen the option where you can rent out a theater room for some friends? Would you consider that for any movies at this point? I know some people who've done this. Again, I'm near New York City, and I know some people who've driven up to Connecticut, where I think it's the Cinemark theaters are letting people rent a theater for as little as like $300.
$99 by us.
Yeah, I mean, it's a relatively big expense for a movie, but you get a few people together and starts to become a little more affordable. I don't know if I have the friends that would want to drive 2 hours to go rent a movie theater for a day. Otherwise, I might consider doing that. But yeah, unfortunately it's a little bit too big of an ask, I think, for me to do it. Although it's something that if that stays around during normal times, again, I'd love to rent my own movie theater instead of sit next to 5 people on their cell phones.
Dude, honestly, I did see a video. Someone had cut up something where they surprised their dad. Because, look, I don't even celebrate Christmas, but to me, Christmas Day is one celebration, and that's being in a movie theater to catch nothing but the best, biggest films during this day. This is the first time in damn near 10 years, dude. Like, Alina and I have been doing that for 8 years, going on Christmas Day to a movie theater, watching these movies, and then being blinded by the snow when you come out, And we didn't get to do that this year, but I saw a video where a daughter took their dad and made sure that he was still able to do it this year. They rented out a whole theater for him. If I could log that on Letterboxd, that was one of the damn cutest things I saw this past week. So yeah, I really like that option that they have going on, but hey, soon, Yeah. I got this one that I want to wrap it up here. Rosier had given us a little shout out. When is the next Intercut? We just got a brand new episode up right now. We're trying to work it out so that we have a brand new episode that comes out right before we do these LME streams to talk, especially a lot of the other spoiler stuff. And then we will be recording the next one, and we are going to be talking about Soul in 1984, as well as Devesh talking about Minari being shut out. We have a lot of thoughts that we're going to be continuing over there.
Absolutely.
But for now, we appreciate you guys watching and just logging in all of these movies that we have over here. Every week I have this little list that I'm updating with the new one. So if you're curious on the list that we had right now, go ahead and duplicate it. They let you clone the list over on letterboxd.com. It's a free service. They don't even pay us. We just love it. We just love logging everything in here. It's a great source. But like we said, this week, I'd say Disney Plus won it. They had Soul. Wonder Woman, huge, monumental shift that we saw. Speaking of,
my most popular Letterboxd review ever.
Hey, shout out to you, dude. What did you say? Were you complaining about the fireworks? That was it, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, even then, it's also the first 4K movie that's come out for HBO. I would have loved to have seen that during Game of Thrones era, but hey, that's out there. Sylvie's Love was a very beautiful movie that's out over on Prime. On Netflix, they had some stuff, but it was the independent one that stood out to me with your name engraved herein, and I haven't even finished that movie. Like, that's how you know the other ones didn't do well. Some good picks on Hulu, and Promising Young Woman in theaters if you have one of those open around you. But nonetheless, very interesting virtual box office Christmas holiday weekend that we had. I think by next year, we're going to look back at this little stream that we recorded right here and realize, damn, things have changed since then. I think we will be having more virtual box office face-offs in the near future, maybe even nearer than we think. But nonetheless, I think it was a good weekend of movies. Glad to have some of the Q&As from you guys, as well as some of the recommendations that we got queued up. Always hit us up on Twitter, hit us up in the comments, hit us up anywhere, even over on Intercut. And until next time, keep watching movies, and we'll see you guys later.